In this video, we will discuss about the transportation of oxygen during respiration. So first of all, we will discuss about the transportation of oxygen. The oxygen is carried out in the blood in two forms. First one is the oxyhemoglobin form and the second one is the solution in plasma water. About 98.5% of the oxygen is carried out in the form of oxyhemoglobin. That is, hemoglobin binds with the oxygen in the lungs to form the oxyhemoglobin. And rest 1.5% of the oxygen they get dissolved in the plasma of the blood and carried out to the tissue. When the level of oxygen is high in the blood, it combines with hemoglobin to form the oxyhemoglobin. It is a reversible process. The oxyhemoglobin form is very unstable and under different circumstances it dissociates to release the oxygen. There are different factors that increases the dissociation of the oxyhemoglobin such as low oxygen levels, low pH and increase in the temperature. The hemoglobin consists of a protein portion called as the globin and a pigment portion known as the heme. The heme consists of 4 atoms of iron, each binds to one molecule of oxygen. So each hemoglobin can bind to 4 molecules of oxygen. Oxygen and hemoglobin combine in a reversible process. Under the high partial pressure, oxygen easily binds with hemoglobin in the lungs blood capillaries. When this oxygenated blood reaches the different tissue, the partial pressure of oxygen in the tissue is very low, due to which the oxyhemoglobin dissociate and release oxygen. There are certain factors that affect the affinity of the hemoglobin for oxygens. The most important factor is the partial pressure of oxygen. Higher the partial pressure of oxygen, the more oxygen will bind to the hemoglobin. When reduced hemoglobin is completely converted to oxyhemoglobin, the hemoglobin is said to be fully saturated, and when the hemoglobin consists of mixture of hemoglobin and oxyhemoglobin, it is known as partially saturated. The relationship between the partial pressure of oxygen and the percentage saturation of the hemoglobin with oxygen is graphically illustrated by a curve which is known as the oxygen hemoglobin dissociation curve, also known as the oxygen dissociation curve. Although partial pressure of oxygen is an important factor, but beside this there are several other factors that affects the affinity of the hemoglobin for oxygen. That is, first one is the acidity. As the acidity increases or the pH decreases, the affinity of the hemoglobin for oxygen decreases, and the entire oxyhemoglobin dissociation curve shifts towards the right. At any given partial pressure of oxygen, hemoglobin is less saturated with oxygen, and this effect is known as the Bohr's effect. This is an important factor increasing the oxygen transport in the blood. The second one is the partial pressure of carbon dioxide. As the partial pressure of carbon dioxide increases, the hemoglobin releases more oxygen. The third one is the temperature. When the temperature increases, the amount of oxygen released from the hemoglobin also increases. And the fourth one is the 2,3-bisphosphoglycerate, which is found in the RBC. It decreases the affinity of the hemoglobin for oxygen and helps to unload the oxygen from the hemoglobin. So this is the graph showing the oxygen hemoglobin dissociation curve. So higher hemoglobin oxygen affinity shifts the curve towards the left, whereas reduced oxygen hemoglobin affinity it shifts the curve towards the right. The oxygen dissociation curves demonstrate that as the partial pressure of oxygen increases, more and more oxygen binds to the hemoglobin. And in the vice versa, the affinity of hemoglobin for oxygen may shift to the left or to the right depending on the different environmental condition, such as higher partial pressure of carbon dioxide, low pH, increase or decrease in the temperature. The oxygen hemoglobin dissociation curve is shifted either to the right or to the left by various factors. So there are certain factors that shifts the curve toward the right, that is decrease in the partial pressure of oxygen, increase in the partial pressure of carbon dioxide, which is also known as the Voss effect, increase in hydrogen ion concentration or decrease in the pH, increased body temperature, excess of 2,3-diphosphoglycerate. Shift to the left. There are certain factors that shifts the curve towards the left, that is acceptance of oxygen by the hemoglobin.